All right, hello, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about, can LLMs play chess? So my first theory was that I could use DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and Claude and kind of see which model was better at playing chess. My originally was thinking like, oh, they're going to be very bad at it. And I also wanted to test some local models too to see how they performed, in particular like QWQ, some of the reasoning models, and maybe 5.4, maybe Gemini, or Gemma, and potentially Mistral. So, my thesis going into it was they will not be good at playing chess, but I wanted to see who was the best of the worst. The reason they wouldn't be good is they aren't built on, they don't have these like complex engines like AlphaZero that's just phenomenal at being able to judge if a move is good, if it's bad, if it's a blunder, if it's a mistake, or like Stockfish or any of the other engines that are out there. There's so many. But the one that I personally use a lot is AlphaZero, and my theory is that there's no way LLMs will ever be able to beat like a human, for example. They wouldn't be able to beat a human player because they just not going to have that ability to do that computational processing to determine the best move. And the reason for that is they really are built about on probabilistic output. They're predicting the next token, the next word. I have a feeling they're really bad at board state evaluation because imagine what's all going to happen. You've got to like process what each piece can do and how it can move and what it actually impacts. They really do focus on language and not logic. So other than some of the reasoning models, which are getting better at that, they really do focus on just the language aspect of it. And my other theory was like, I don't know how much chess knowledge they even have. How much chess knowledge is actually trained on it. I did see that there are some fine-tuned models that are built with chess knowledge, but even those I didn't see actually perform well. But I'll leave those out for today's test. The prompt, this prompt is massive. I worked on this quite a bit and kept tuning and tuning and tuning, try to get them to actually play a decent game. First thing I do is I tell them what player they are, tell them the board state. So you can imagine the visual board state is it basically gives them uh, kind of an ASCII form, like where every piece is. So capital P, capital N, capital B for the different individual pieces and where they sit on the board. I also give it a list of available legal moves because my thought there was if I could generate that for it, I could at least at a minimum narrow down the things that it needs to look at. So maybe it could analyze those legal moves a little bit better for it. Uh, that list isn't perfect by any means because so this could actually be causing some of the flaw in it, but it is a pretty good list. It's a pretty featureful list of like things that it can do. Also give it the material balance. I tell like this is the summary of like how many pieces white has, how many pieces black has, which pieces are in danger for each one. So trying to give it like what a human would think of when I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, I'm behind by one piece. My knight is in danger. Is there a way I can protect it? That was my thinking behind that. And then I also give it whether the king is safe or not. And I gave it some tips that I came up with, like control the board, control the center of the board, try to develop knights and bishops early, ensure the king is safe, ensure the king's safety by castling. I've never seen any of them castle, so we'll see in our demo if we actually see any castle today. Never leave a piece unprotected, so when you're moving, try to either be protecting it or planning to protect it the next turn. Look for some tactical opportunities. Don't repeat moves or positions that could lead to a draw. I also go through each of the individual pieces, which I won't read through here, that tell it kind of how it can particularly move. And then I talk a little bit about castling, and then ultimately the output. I want the output in a very particular format so I can process it correctly. Now, so let's go into the demo. And this isn't pretty by any means. So what we're going to do is we're going to put DeepSeek versus Claude, and we're going to start match. It takes a second or two for it to kind of initialize the engine. And now you can see the white model here is DeepSeek. The black model here is Claude. And they are making their moves, and this is hitting their API. So none of this is running locally. This is using the newest Sonnet model from Claude, and this is using DeepSeek v3. So notice here that they're making some pretty interesting moves. The king goes back and forth. That was right because he was under check there. Now he's moving up again. We may actually end up with a repetition because if that knight ends up just moving over and over there again, See, yeah, we are. We're going to end up in a five-fold repetition, and it's going to be a draw here. And that's super unfortunate because I was hoping for a little bit better game here. Let's see what ends up happening. Yep. So the knight king, or the king's going to go back again, and then we should end up in a five-fold repetition. Yep. So let's just run another one here real quick and just see how this ends up going. Maybe we'll end up with a little bit different game because they do end up different periodically. So this time we've got both knights moved out on white. So DeepSeek, I'm not sure why we didn't take that. It's interesting. So you move that out of protection. So he should take the knight here, which again, I don't know why the engine isn't good enough at like at least picking up that it's could take that knight in that situation. It's like a super easy thing as a human, we can see that. But again, in this case, DeepSeek is not able to pick that up, the information I'm giving it. So we're going to end up with a very similar game as last time. So anyway, I'll stop it there. Just let that finish off to the side. I'll talk a little bit more about this. So then I got to thinking about like, what about reasoning models? So reasoning models can do a little bit more logic. They can think through things a little bit more. They can process a bit more data. Like the QWQ model, I can give it like a pretty in-depth problem, and you'll see it just have a conversation with itself to get to the answer. So, with that said, let's do another preview here. But this time we're going to do OpenAI. This is the O1 preview, and let's just put it against DeepSeek. You can see some of the models I've been testing against here. And we're going to go ahead and start match here. So again, O1 is the white model. We've already see something different here. We've got some pieces actually being taken, which is different than our previous game. The queen should have taken that white there. Not sure. Oh, wow. The white just gave away uh, their queen. Black just gave away their queen. This is actually a very interesting game and how this is working. So you can see it's a much more active game. But again, we're only really moving a couple pieces. And if you notice, a lot of it seems to be the knight and the bishop. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that I kind of tell it to kind of focus on those early. And maybe what I need to do is kind of tell it like when you're out of the early game and into the late game. We're going to end up in a five-fold repetition here. It ended with a draw. So ultimately, not good again. Ended up in a pretty poor game. Most of them ended up in five-fold repetitions. I actually had one game get all the way down to where it was just king versus king, and there was no material difference. It ended up stopping the game that way. So my new theory is reasoning models work better when they can just ramble on. So basically, they just keep talking themselves without being restricted. So my thinking was like, could I do some tests with O1 where I'm not telling it to just output the move, but instead uh, letting it talk for a little bit through its thinking of it, or trying to get it to think deeper about it, and then give me a response on that. So here's an example of what it would look like in some of my early tests, where I tell it like, your response must be exactly 4 or 5 characters or in UCI format. So this is what like the generated version of that prompt would be. So this would be an actual board state. You can see the material balance here. So this is just good to kind of see what I'm actually passing in. Now, this gave me E7, E5. This is with O1 preview. Now, what I did is like, instead of telling it what to limit, I told it to like, what is the best move? And you could see immediately it was thinking longer. And it ended up generating the exact same answer. And I did this a series of times, basically with just giving me this output and basically trying to have it be open-ended. And it was very consistently the same answer, which surprised me and kind of broke that theory that I had before. And ultimately, where I ended up landing with this is that with chess, LLMs are a really, really long way away from being able to play it. The general use ones are a long way away from being able to play it because of how much computational logic has to actually be put into solving it. Now, what does this actually mean in practice? So I was thinking about it. Think about all the things humans do. that take just a lot of brain power and like solving problems, like driving a car and things like that. Like we're working on solving like self-driving, and that's pretty awesome. But I feel like this is going to be it would be very hard to just plug in an LLM into like a robot body, like a Tesla robot, and have it perform well and know how to kind of behave because of like the computational things that you actually have to do. So here in the, for example, um, White just lost their queen in that in just an absolute horrible move there. So there's really like just no logic. I would say I probably could play a better game of chess randomly picking a piece and just taking the list of valid moves and just picking it. I could probably take a random move generator and play against one of these AIs and have a good chance to actually win. So anyway, I'd be curious what you guys all think. Like, this result surprised me more than I had anticipated. I knew they were going to be bad. I didn't know they were going to be this bad at chess. Anyway, I appreciate you all. If you want to watch more content like this, please like and subscribe. Until next time, peace out.